I'd have to, I don't want to get in the. Maybe around here's better or there?
Whatever's easiest for you, I can go
Let's try this side, so they're not looking at me.
Okay.
Yeah, this is better. Well, hello, everybody. It is nice to be back. Sorry I missed y'all last month. I mean, I was on Zoom, but thank you, Bob, for filling in last month. You did a great job. Contrary to popular belief, I did make it back from Greece in one piece. Even though I didn't feel like it, you know, I made it back. So anyway, it's good to be back. And we got a great meeting tonight. We have an old friend of the chapter who's back to speak with us, Mike Vance. Yeah, nice to see you again, Mike. Been a while.
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. So Mike is back. But before we have Mike get up here and talk, I wanted to go through a couple of things. If you notice, our normal tech guy, Chris, is not here. So if anything messes up, I apologize. He's the one that usually handles all this. So David, can you hear me all right still? All right, David can hear me. I can't hear you, David.
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
All right, yeah, we can hear you. Thank you. And keep your eyes on David. I have an announcement about David here in a second as well. So anyway, we had 3 new members from last month, at least 3 that Chris sent me. I believe Corey Burt from Virginia, Stephen Sifrelak. Right here. Right there. How you doing, Steve? You haven't figured it out. I'm terrible with names. And Carlis Cavender. No, not here. Okay. Also from Houston. We also have Greg, right? Greg?
Hello. I joined like an hour ago.
You what?
I joined like an hour ago.
Greg joined an hour ago, so congratulations. All right, that's the way. Right. That's right. That's the rule around here. You know, we're not going to haze you or anything like in the clubhouse, but you got to buy everybody drinks. No, good. Also, we have some guests. So if you're new, if you're here for the first time, please have the person who brought you introduce you. We'll start right here. Mr. Lloyd?
Yeah. Yes. Very. This is Glenda Green, and she is a super fan. Super fan. Remember Barbara Bush?
Yeah.
She used to have the big book and kept the score of everything. Well, Glenda's been doing that for about 60 years, 50 years, whatever it is.
Really?
If you sit with her, she's one of the ones with the big book, take every note on every pitch for the last 1955, 1960, I don't know, something like that. Yeah, she's a big Astro fan.
So including this year, she's taken a lot of notes.
Yeah, she sits next.
Well, we have quite a few questions for you.
Oh, yeah.
That was a minute.
Anyway, she's a chemist by trade, but and I knew her at Shell where I worked. She retired. She had phoned me 15 years ago. I can't even believe it was that long. But anyway, she's a super fan, and but she doesn't yell much. I don't think you ever yell. Yeah.
If I'm watching at home.
Okay. She behaves properly. Anyway, Glenda Green.
Welcome, Glenda. Bob?
Say,
Go ahead.
you probably keep a better scorebook than Phil Rizzuto. Have you heard that story?
No.
Well, he has a tendency to get up and wander around between innings. Sometimes he doesn't get back in time, so what he filled in for the hitter he missed was W.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Wasn't watching.
She's always watching. She never even leaves or anything. Every.
Yeah, 18 inning game over.
Bob?
Yeah.
You have a guess.
Yeah, Senator Margie Oliver from Chicago.
Big Cubs fan, right?
Actually, I think the third favorite team is the Astros. Roots for them unless it's versus the White Sox or the Cubs. And so we'd love to hear if anyone has any stories about Roberto Clemente. She would love to hear those. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right.
We both grew up in Pennsylvania.
We love the guy too. Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome. So, all right. And in case you haven't figured it out or you don't know, I'm Joe Thompson. All right. So you know, the loudmouth here, I guess. All right. Again, Bob, thank you last month for filling in. Matthew made a great presentation last month about Roy Taylor and the Houston Race Riot in 1917. I bought a Neil Lancott book about the history of Negro League Baseball, if you want to look through it. I'm not sure that story's in there, but I'm sure there's a lot of other stories. Maybe it is in there. I have a special announcement for next month, and it involves that guy right there, David Jerome. David Jerome, in case you don't know, was a very close friend to the Burden family. Bill Burden and Shirley Burden. Okay? Unfortunately, we've lost both now. But David wrote a book about the life of Bill Burden. And David emailed me, a couple months ago. And said that David has decided he will come down here next month and visit us and give a presentation about his book. Now, in order to fit this into David's schedule, we moved some stuff around. So next month, we will have a very special Thursday night edition of the Houston SABR chapter meeting. Now, why is that important for all of you here, all of us Texans? Well, in the restaurant, Thursday is steak night here at the Spaghetti Western. For $20, you can get a steak and potato. But it's a very popular night here at the restaurant, so make sure you're here early. So Thursday, May the 23rd, not only can you have a good steak and potato, but you can hear a great story about Bill Burden from David Jerome. So David, do you want to say a few things real fast about?
I'm just after all this time of just being on Zoom with you all, it's going to be a pleasure and an honor to join you live and in person next month. Looking very much forward to being there. I've always enjoyed the presentations that I've observed on Zoom. Like Joe said, I was very close to Bill and Shirley. Some of you in that room perhaps knew Bill much longer than I did. But in the short time that we got to know one another, it was a very close relationship. Bill died on November 21st, 2021, and Shirley died 2 weeks ago this last Wednesday. And so they're both gone, like Joe said, but the daughters are still around. We're still close. In fact, I teach college with the youngest daughter, Lisa. And so it's a wonderful family. I'm looking forward to telling you more about them when we are together on the 23rd of May.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Bob.
You might want to ask Lucia where she is and why she's there.
Okay, sure. I'll do that here in a second, Bob.
Oh,
I will. But if you've never read Bill's book or about David's book about Bill Burden, you'll have copies of the book. They'll be $30. He takes cash or check only. He does not do the credit card thing. And I assume he will sign every copy that you buy. So I heard say a great book. I have a copy of it myself. So can't wait for you to be here next month, David, to have you talk about Bill and some stories about Shirley as well, and have you get copies of the book and sign copies of it. Thanks, David. Okay.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
No problem. So you want me to ask Lucia?
Yeah.
Lucia. Lucha, where are you? Since we can't see you. Lucha, where are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, we just can't see you.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm in my Airbnb
Oh, okay.
in Mexico City. Came down to see the Astros play on Saturday.
You, gonna
Um,
bring special things for Mexico City from the game?
Yeah, I hope so. I'll get some souvenirs and yeah, looking forward to seeing the Astros here in the capital. Huge city, 20 million people. Took 30 minutes to get from the airport. But yeah. This is my first time on Zoom for a SABR meeting, so so far so good.
Yeah, good, good. Well, have fun. Hopefully you'll bring them some luck, especially after the
I
game
hope
thing.
so.
So, well, have fun. Have fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, a couple announcements. If you haven't signed up for SABR 52, I highly suggest that you do. Speaking of SABR 52, the chapter newsletter is coming out. Where you at, Tony and Scott? Later this month?
Yeah, next week, the end of the month, maybe, end of the month.
Okay. I have a very personal president's message about national conventions. All right, and why they're important for all of you, or at least I hope all of you to go. So I would like for all of you to join us August 7th through the 11th in Minneapolis for SABR 52. The rate for SABR members before June 7th is $265. That's a $30 savings, and non-members is $335 before June 7th. So make sure you sign up for SABR 52. Okay. Maybe you also know, some of you, that I have set up a game in Corpus Christi. Well, I didn't set up the game. I set up a night for SABR members to hopefully join. We have a chapter outing in Corpus Christi in August. That's Saturday, August 31st. That's the right date, I believe. I have set us up for $68 a piece. You get to sit in the Sitco Cotton Club at Whataburger Field. It's air conditioned, and you get a dinner buffet. You know, kind of like out there in Sugar Land, but this is in Corpus Christi. Have all of you been to Whataburger Field? But you never been to Whataburger Field? Yeah, get the Whataburger. I will say this, even though it is Whataburger Field, maybe go to Whataburger outside Whataburger Field. Yeah, I will say this, but if you would like to go, again, it's only $68 a person. If you want to give me, I'm handling this. I'm taking $20 deposits. You don't have to take I don't have to take the other $48 till later on in the 2 weeks before the game, but I want to go ahead and pay the deposit. We have to have at least 25 people. So far, a couple of people have expressed interest. One person has sent their money in already. So if you want to pay me by cash, 20 bucks, card, whatever you want to do tonight or whatever, or you just want to let me know, just let me know. I think it would be great. I asked members from the Gilbert Martinez, the Roger Hornsby chapter, if they want to go as well. Gilbert can't go. He'll be here at a game. But if you want to join me to see the Hooks play the Dodgers AA team, the Tulsa Drillers, just for that night, I'm trying to get the Hooks to set us up with a maybe tour of the stadium, or to get Joe Thon, the manager, to speak with us. Dickie Thon's son, or maybe somebody from the Hooks organization or something. So if you want to go,
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, no, I can't go. A couple of weeks ago, we went down to Corpus, the stadium ground to see the eclipse. It turned out we couldn't do it, but we did go to the Hooks game, and there is a Whataburger right there in the stadium.
yeah, that's right.
I'd rather eat there instead of where you're gonna eat. I'm gonna be out, I was like, not the big guy. I was very glad to get two huge bridges going across the bay. One's good, I don't know.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's not as hot as you would think, actually. My wife and I were surprised the first time we went there, sitting in the park. But it is a nice, beautiful view. You know, so if you want to go, just talk to me after the meeting. and, let me know. Okay, so that's enough for me. Let me turn it over to tonight's special guest, Mike Vance. I've known Mike for a very long time. Mike, was the, editor for the, Houston baseball book that we did, what, 15, how long ago was that?
2013.
2013? Wow, yeah. So, Mike's been a member of this chapter before I was, that's how far back he goes. Mike is when you talk about Houston history, all you gotta do is ask Mike. Okay, he can probably explain it, and it doesn't have to be just baseball. He's wrote some books about crime in the city and stuff like that, right? But I'll have Mike say some of them. But he's written a new book about baseball, and it's a fiction, right? Fiction book, a good story here. So without further ado, everybody, Mike Vance. All right.
All right, so, yeah, am I on the right spot? First of all, I do not speak as loudly as Joe does. So, everybody try to be quiet and listen, chew quietly, and I will talk as loudly as I can. This book is book number 11 that I've written, but it is the first fiction book to come out, and the nonfiction ones, easy to talk about. You make a history presentation, PowerPoint, something like that. These come with a reading instead. I'll talk about it a little bit, but I'll also read 3 little selections from the book. The book is called Wingo, and it is about a fictional guy that is involved in baseball for over 80 years. Like probably most of us in this room, he wanted to be a baseball player. He was born on the first day of the 20th century, January 1st, 1901. Wanted to be a baseball player, but he wasn't good enough. So he ended up becoming an equipment man, and usually an assistant equipment man. His journey took him, he was born in eastern Arkansas, not far from Memphis. Started with the Memphis Chicks, and through circumstances, he ended up going to New York in 1922. And in 22, the Yankees and the Giants were still sharing a ballpark. So he worked for both of those teams. The following year, the Yankees got their own place, and Rube Wingo went to work for the Yankees, and his journey ended up, won't give it away, but the Yankees fired him at some point, and he went back to work for the New York Giants. This book is the first half of a duology. So this one ends in 1943 when he is working for the Giants. Book 2 will pick up, he ends up working for the Reds and follows those people from the Reds who come to Houston to start the Colt 45s. So book 2 will have a lot of Houston stuff in there. And Larry even makes an appearance or two in book 2. But this one, like I said, ends in 1943. So here we go. All right. So the first thing I'm going to read is a scene from Memphis. And the Memphis Chicks, do y'all know the name Turkey Mike Donlin?
Yes.
Played for the New York Giants and became a vaudeville actor and movie actor and big drinker. And I think that's probably an understatement. Turkey Mike ended up being one of the best friends of John Barrymore and lived in LA later. And apparently they would have drinking competitions with each other about every night. Well, Turkey Mike was also the manager of the Memphis Chicks for a year. So the way this historical fiction works, there are real people in there, and then there are fictional characters. So the one thing I can tell you about this book, any baseball action, any game action is 100% real. So if there's a game, And I'm talking about on a certain day, all the way down to the box score and who did what, that part is correct. So this one is from Memphis, and Rube Wingo's out with a buddy of his named SC. When SC and I walked through the door to the Jelly that night, Limp Eddie had just plunked the first notes of one of my favorite tunes, a piece called The Shoe Tickler Rag. I was paying close attention to the music, and when he was done, I clapped my hands till they stung a little. But do you know who picked up the stool and brought it back to Eddie? Turkey Mike Donald. I'd never expected to see him at a place like that in 2 million years. Like a lot of fellas, when Turkey Mike got past cocktail number 12 or 13, he was headed one of two directions, backslapping or jaw punching. Well, Mike recognized me right off, and lucky for us, he was in a large mood. He slurred out a hello, threw an arm around each of us, and steered us toward the bar. As usual, neither of us was flush with cash, and Turkey Mike was no doubt more used to being the drink buyee than the buyer. I think SC and me exchanged a glance, wondering exactly where this was leading. Mike was laughing and rambling on about 6 different stories simultaneously. We couldn't make head or tail out of it, but periodically he'd pop out with a phrase like, "And that was a smell you'd never forget." Or maybe, "I swear to God, fellas, I never saw a donkey happier." He'd pause with a real satisfied look, and SC and I would go to who run right at once. I'll guarantee you that none of us intended for Saturday night to last until Sunday breakfast, but that's just what occurred. I stumbled back to my little room, and I reckon SC did too. But when I saw Turkey Mike at the ballpark before the game next afternoon, it was clear he hadn't found the notion of a fried egg and a couple hours sleep nearly as appealing. Not only did it look like he had kept right on guzzling, but his whole countenance now told me that he was in a vile frame of mind. He stunk to high heaven. When I passed by him, he didn't even shoot me a glance. It was like he'd never seen me before in all my days, and I knew enough to keep my profile low. Roy Fentress was pitching for the Chicks that day against Birmingham. Fentress was a Missouri boy who had come over from the Fort Worth Panthers that year. Pretty good chunker. He'd win 19 for us that season, but none of those was on this Sunday. I'd seen worse outings, but Turkey Mike Donlin was having none of it. He'd stormed out there, cussing poor Roy up and down up one side and down the other, snatched the pill out of his hand, and announced to the umpire that the new hurler was none other than Turkey Mike himself. Putting it mildly, we were shocked. Now, you might think that having an ex-major leaguer pitching is a good thing, but Turkey Mike was an infielder, not a pitcher. That'd be kind of like getting excited to get a heart surgeon to do your bathroom plumbing. On top of that, Donlin was old, drunk, and madder than a penguin on Casual Friday. You recollect that scene from the movie where the pitcher knocks out the mascot? Well, sir, old Mike's first pitch went about a foot back of the batter and plunked a scorecard vendor clean on the noggin. Laid him out flat, it did. The one after that was a 58-footer, kicked up gravel all in the backstop's grill. That was when you started to hear the grumbling from the bleachers. It was all downhill from there. Even those Chicks players who had been Turkey Mike's most steadfast supporters found little to do but stare at their shoe tops. In scarce 14 hours, I've watched him go from Mike Donlin, impeccably dressed toast of the great white way, who was ever ready with a quip for all he met, to Mike Donlin, the angry Irish orphan who was grasping for publicity on the way to city lockout. He and the Memphis Ball Club parted ways soon thereafter. Old Mike ended his days back in California, scouting players, taking bit parts in movies, but mostly running up debts and perfecting his skills with the bottle. Though it sounds like a sad tale to me when I tell it, I have no doubt that it was mostly a glorious ride to Turkey Mike. So, not done yet. That was true. Turkey Mike actually was apparently drunk one day at the ballpark as the manager, pulled the pitcher and went in to pitch himself. And that did lead to his dismissal by the Memphis Chicks. So that part is true. We'll do another one. I mentioned that Rube Wingo, the character, goes to New York and ends up working for the Giants and the Yankees. And when he gets there, 1922, is a year that Babe Ruth started the year suspended. He had gotten in trouble for barnstorming during the previous offseason. And that was something that Commissioner Landis very selectively enforced. And Landis didn't like Babe Ruth, is what it came down to. So he suspended him for about the first 6 weeks of the season. And my guy here, who starts working for the two ball clubs, Miller Huggins takes him aside and tells him to keep an eye on Babe Ruth. So that's one of the extra jobs that he has, is following Ruth around, trying to keep him out of trouble. So you can imagine how well that ended up going. Ruth at the time was living at the Ansonia Hotel. And that part of the story is true here. At the time, Babe was living at the Ansonia Hotel on Broadway at West 73rd. It was some kind of rolling party at that place too, boy. Babe was the king of the roost. He paraded all over the joint in his bathrobe, even down to the barber shop in the basement. Usually that New Brunswick hound padded along in his wake. Chippies would drop in and out of the big hotel at all hours of the day. The Babe had something to do with it, sure. But the bigger truth is, it was one of those times and places when the younger folks were not all that particular about who they were with. Seeing a couple of total strangers macking the elevator lobby was the norm. I reckon I had my share of fun whilst I was a hanger-on there, but not all of it was in the sheets. Once had to be after midnight on a game day. The party had wound down to the Long Bob Muselle, myself, and a bob-haired floozy in a tassel green dress. She had passed out and then rallied to start back on the champagne. As I recall, she had enough makeup smeared on her cheeks that by that time to pass for an opera clown. And her left stocking had a run in the thigh that would render it unfit to catch salmon. The party had gotten real tame. Long Bob was making noises about getting home to his wife, and I already said that the tumbler of scotch in my big paw would be my last. Suddenly the Babe tugged on a tweed ivy cap and announced he wanted to play some golf. Babe, it's a Mike Dark, I pointed out. He just countered with, kid, you work for the ball club and the ball club wants me to be happy. Right now, what'll make me happy is to play golf. He had a point, or at least I thought he did at the time. We all four stared at one another for a few long seconds. Then I snatched up Ruth's golf bag and headed for the door. Nobody said a word. Finally, Babe stepped into the bedroom and emerged with golf shoes on. Muselle nodded at me, and off we went, as liquored up and unlikely a foursome as would ever grace the links. I can admit now that I really didn't have much of a plan until we reached the elevators, and then it all seemed crystal clear. Now, the three of us men all topped 6 foot by a goodly margin, so as we crowded in, I looked down at the little dude in the blue uniform and just slurred out, Ruth. Well, I have not even a suggestion as to what it was like at street level. I swear that I cannot deny the unbridled joy of driving golf balls off the roof of the Ansonia Hotel in the middle of the night. With me teeing up balls on top of matchboxes, Bob and Babe took turns knocking them into the dim distance. Every once in a while, we would pause to guzzle, and I would smack one with the mashie nipple. Clearly, you will never hit a drive on a real course that will match the length you get with an 18-story head start. Even had we been sober, I doubt we could have heard the screams of those New Yorkers still roaming the Upper West Side at that hour, nor the breaking plate glass for that matter. I think we may have laughed at squealing tires once, but that was the extent of any realization that our sky-high driving range might be wreaking havoc below. The next day, as I lay in bed with one eye open, those concerns crept into my noggin for the first time. By the time I got to the stadium, I convinced myself that I would be summarily fired for landing the Bambino in jail, but that was not the case. If any authorities ever said word one about our golf outing, I never heard of it. So, obviously, to my knowledge, that part never happened. So it's a balance between fiction that fits the characters and embellishment on things that really happen. I tried to, with the characters, if somebody gets into, with the exception of Babe Ruth, obviously, who had more written about him than every other ball player combined, I would imagine. But other guys, if somebody was going to get into particular trouble, I usually made up a fictional character to do that. It's interesting. I did a convention, a writers convention not long ago, and one of the sessions was on libel law and what you can get away with. And the thing that you hear over and over is you can't libel dead people. And that's kind of true, but not exactly. The estates, if you make some outlandish claim, the estates carry rights for a certain amount of time. And that differs according to what state you are in. California is a big one because people that make movies have to worry about that sort of thing. And it lasts 80 years, the estates right in California. The longest one, for no apparent reason, is the state of Indiana, where the rights of an estate last for 100 years after somebody dies. So, you know, I tried to be careful not to libel anybody. There are a few of them, and I can't name them. There are a few of them that when you die, that's it. Your estate is out of luck. So it just, you know, kind of varies. But anyway, it was fun to write. Like I said, the next one will involve a lot of Houston stuff. And he spends, I guess, 1943 until not quite 20 years. He stays in Cincinnati. And then he leaves with Gabe Paul and Tal Smith and comes down to Houston. So that's where he ends. The way that the books are written, Rube Wingo is 116 years old, and he is giving an interview to a writer, actually a series of interviews that last over a while. So these are supposedly verbatim transcripts of those interviews. So that's the book. Yes?
What made you break the long streak of nonfiction?
I had started this book a long time ago, and I have another series that is coming out that I had started that is based on true crime stuff that I did. So to back up a little bit, I wrote a true crime called Murder and Mayhem in Houston. While I was writing that, I discovered a defense attorney who handled one of the cases that I wrote about. And the more I read about this attorney, the more I thought he deserves his own book. So I wrote a separate book about his cases that last from 1895 to 1910. And that book was called Getting Away with Bloody Murder. And then I started thinking about these cases, and they're great. So I turned that into a fictional series. And I'd written the first book of that fictional series. Meanwhile, this I had written like 6 years ago. And I had never done anything with it because, let's face it, baseball fiction is kind of niche. You know, if you look at the SABR bookshelves that comes out, that they put out once a quarter, all the members that have written books, every year or every quarter, there'll be probably 50 books or more that are nonfiction and like 2 that are fiction. And a little bit of irony, mine was, they had the picture up there, one picture over from Turkey Mike Donlin's biography that somebody did. But, you know, it's mostly biography stuff or statistically driven studies. And, you know, I'm thinking, where am I going to sell baseball fiction? You folks notwithstanding. But I went to, again, a couple of writers' conferences last year, and I'm like, you know, this is doing me no good sitting on my computer. So I might as well go ahead and get it out there. And I had done performing for years before I started doing history for a living. And the creative side of things was something that hadn't really left, you know. So turned it into fiction. The second half of this will be out. I am going to SABR 52 in Minneapolis after not having gone for about 10 years. And this is part of the reason, because I want to, you know, see who I can talk to up there. But the second half will be out before that convention in August. So both halves will be out by then. The first of the historical crime fiction will come out in October. And there'll be a second one out right before Christmas, and then that one I'll just keep cranking out as some.
Mike, you've already done the research for the second book, and, what kind of percentage of time goes to research versus the actual study?
That's a great question. The percentage of time that goes to research varies by the writers. One of those two conferences I went to was just historical fiction people. And you can tell that some of them care a lot more about the research than others. I am one of those, since I approach it from a historian standpoint, who will go down some little stupid rabbit trail and 2 hours researching something that will never make the book just because I'm curious about it. So with me, it takes a lot of time. Like I said, I wanted to make sure that the baseball action was 100% correct. So, for example, Wade Hoyt becomes a character in this book, and the next book as well, because Wade Hoyt was pitching for the New York team at the time. Then he ends up being an announcer in Cincinnati. So when Wingo moves to Cincinnati, Wade Hoyt gets him the job with the Reds. And I don't think that's given away too much. That's like in the first page or two of book 2. But the day that Rube Wingo shows up at the Polo Grounds for the first time, Wade Hoyt is pitching against Stan Tobolewski. So I went on this whole looking at the box score, trying to find out individual things about the two of them at the time. So all that figures into the book. So to write that one page, I probably spent another hour digging around in box scores and seas of records and all that kind of stuff. Any other questions about that? I am also talking about something else. Yeah, Tony.
I just want to say, my, if you will, early 20th century legal practice is terrific. And it's very accurate what I can tell. And so the magnets is now dead, they dead. And you still have the great side somewhere. It's still attended by maybe.
Man,
But it's really a wonderful.
Tony and Marsha were both beta readers for that first crime fiction that will be out in October. And so they know how the story goes. Thanks for the kind words. He's the guy that's based on is buried at Hollywood Cemetery, so up at North Main and 45. And man, I looked for relatives when I was writing the nonfiction book about him, and I couldn't find any at all. Any other questions about this fiction stuff? Yes.
For the second half of the series, have you chatted with Tal?
Oh, yeah. Yep, I talked with Tal. I have some questions that I'll ask Larry. The way it came down, I wrote this initially as one book 6 years ago. And then when I got to looking at it again, it was way too long for one book. So I split it in two. The second half, I'm going to have to come up with about another 25,000 words. So I'm still working on all that. But Tal was extremely helpful in a couple of stories. Really, the one that I used was something that Tal told me about when he was with the Reds. And they did spring training in Laredo. And not for the big club, for the minor league organizations. And he was sent down to run that. And so that figures in the book as well. And that was a story direct from Tal. But, I mean, he's the guy's with the Colts and Astros from the start. So all of the characters that you would expect to read about, especially the Turk Farrells and Doug Raiders and, they're all in there, being characters. All right. The other thing Joe asked me to talk about was the historical marker that we are doing for, wait till he passes. The historical marker that we are doing for Colt Stadium. And we had put in, I guess, a year ago, SABR National had advertised this grant program that chapters could ask for grants, and we made a request at that point that wasn't fully fleshed out. I guess we did not get the money. We presented a better request this time, and we did get money to pay for these historical markers. The historical markers are running, the Texas State Historical Marker runs between $2,000 and $3,000. And that's fabricated and shipped to us. So we want to have, I had done the Astrodome marker a few years ago. And we placed that one out there and had a great day, extremely warm day, but a lot of people showed up and we had a lot of people talking. Normally, when you do historical marker unveilings, there's not a big crowd. We had a big crowd for the Astrodome, and every politician that we invited wanted to be there. TV cameras were there. I do not expect that same thing to happen for Colts Stadium, even though it's still out there at NRG Park. But we will certainly let you know. The way things are going, I have written up the application and the narrative. The narrative is about, I think, 18 pages of footnoted research about the highlights of Colts Stadium, a little bit of context at the beginning about how the ball club, the franchise came to be, and all the, like I said, the highlights of things that happened there, and then what happened to the ballpark is, I don't know if it's unique. I doubt if it's unique, but it's pretty rare. The ballpark sat around there for a while. It was where they tested AstroTurf before they put it inside the dome. It was tested over at Colts Stadium. They used it for workout. Did you ever go work out when the dome was built?
Yeah, we did. Probably 70, 75, somewhere in there. We would go down and take picture painting practice. We liked this because then we got to come out and put on shorts and t-shirt and go over the old Colts Stadium.
Yeah.
And they couldn't mow the lane big enough to run in it, so they ran back and forth in the outfield. The idea being that if we could work out in the summer, that we wouldn't be spent when we went on the road to other places where it's hot. And the good thing about it was that we go run around for about a half an hour, come back and take a shower and put on a fresh uniform. By that time, batting practice was over, so we didn't have to shag.
Nice. Nice. So they kept the ballpark over there and used it for a few different things, and then they sold it and disassembled it over the course of about 3 years and shipped it to Torreon, Mexico. And it was part of a Mexican League club for a while, and then that club, apparently, from what I've read, the owner apparently got crossways with the governor of that state in Mexico. And the ball club closed down. They sold the park again and were going to move it to a different city in Mexico and reassemble it yet again. And then they found out that it wasn't as stable as they thought it was at that point. So it didn't end up getting moved. There's part of it did. Part of it was used as an amusement park. And part of it stayed as a grandstand for like a kid stadium. So there apparently are pieces of Colts Stadium that are still in Mexico being used for something else, which is pretty wild. So the narrative is written, everything is done, except the application needs a signature from somebody with the county. When we did the Astrodome, Commissioner Rodney Ellis signed that. So I sent this application back over to Rodney Ellis's office, and for no apparent reason that I can figure out, they immediately forwarded it to the legal counsel, and it has been sitting there for a while. The deadline is approaching. I talked to the legal counsel middle of last week, and they were concerned because they didn't think that the description of where the marker would go was specific enough. I assured them it was. Ultimately, I sent them the Astrodome application, and the description on that one was simply the street address of NRG Park. So at that point, the legal counsel's like, oh, okay. that's fine. So allegedly, Judge Hidalgo will sign that this week. So that is what I'm hoping for, as with everything, when that is actually in my inbox and we can send it off to Austin, I will feel better. But I will let Joe know that we'll need a check for $100 for the deposit. The rest of it comes after they approve it. But we have the money from SABR in hand and everything's done. The bad news on this is that the lead time on these markers, the way it's running, it's over 2 years before that will actually get fabricated. The deadline for these marker applications is May 15th. The state looks them over and decides, exactly what's going on. I'm not concerned about them not approving this or anything, but they let people know in the fall, and then it goes in queue to be fabricated. So once it's fabricated, they will ship it to NRG Park and we will schedule a time with them for an unveiling.
Does the amounts from SABR cover the entire cost of this?
I don't know yet.
Let's see.
I don't know yet. I am hoping that it does. If it does not, the shortfall will only be a couple $100, maybe 400 at the most. But I'm hoping it's amazing. Inflation being what it is, the cost of the markers has actually gone down. For a while, it was 3,000, a little over 3,000 with shipping included, and it has dropped dramatically. So it's one of those things that seems to fluctuate. There was one marker company in San Antonio that had done markers for 120 years for the state. That foundry finally closed. And there was some scrambling around to find out who was going to do it. And that's why the price went way up and now it's going to. Any other market questions?
Colt Stadium story, through as far as I know it. For those of you that are old enough to have gone to a game there, you probably can't imagine having a double header there. But there wasn't. And it was 445 against the Phillies. And the Colts won the first game. Came back and threw all their drinks on the floor, trying to cool off the best they could before going back out. Dean Mock was the name of it. He said, I'm tired of you guys complaining about how hot it is out there. They have to play in this hot weather too. I hear anybody say anything about how hot it is out there. It's gonna cost you $100. It's a lot of money. So after the first inning, Johnny Cavender came in and drew his thumb down, drew his hand down. I can't believe this. Damn hot here. That's the way I like it.
In doing all the reading about it, one of my favorite stories was they had a picnic area out in the outfield. And I guess the clubhouse is, you walked all the way out.
First baseline and foul territory is kind of halfway in the parking.
Yeah. So apparently the visitors clubhouse was in front of this picnic area and they had, I've seen pictures of these aluminum umbrellas, like aluminum beach umbrellas that sat over these concrete picnic tables. And there's a story that the Mets were in town and Casey Stengel got thrown out for some reason and apparently went down and just got thrown out at like the 6th inning, spent the rest of the game sitting under one of those aluminum umbrellas, eating hot dogs from the concession stand and signing autographs for anybody that wanted to come over, which I think is just awesome. So.
What year was the marker done for the Astrodome?
I think 2019,
2018.
18. There you go.
The narrative you spoke of, about the plaque?
No, the narrative, the plaque, I want to say it holds, give or take 300 words. The narrative's 18 pages, but it's public document. So once all that's approved, we can circulate that to everybody in the chapter, absolutely.
So a lot of stadiums, have statues of different people that, they remember as icons of that organization. So how many people know that there's a statue, in front of the Astrodome in Cavender? Who the statue, who the rendition would be? Our new member.
Oh, there's like.
Was it Wagner?
No, the owner's wife.
Oh, the other flag.
Yeah, there is a statue of a lady.
Yep.
Yeah.
Vivian.
was a steer. But I am from Pittsburgh.
Oh, you got one there. Vivian Smith. R.E. Bob Smith's wife. Yeah, that's me.
All right, Joe.
That's it?
Thank y'all. And if anybody wants to buy a copy of the fiction book, I got them. Did you have a question?
No, I don't want my.
Oh, I can do that.
How much? All right, good.
They're 20, and that includes tax, 20.
All right, Mike, thank you very much. Really do appreciate everything Mike has done for the chapter over the years. We really do. Herb. Herb has a presentation about, well, very quick little talk about this year's chapter's Astros win contest. Unlike ESPN, I don't think there is a second chance to change your win total guesses. But
I got about.
Herb's got to be
every other person, brother. What's passing around.
I know what I said.
all right, Herb, it is all you.
I will.
I'm gonna be pretty brief.
You picked 83 wins, but the lowest total, right? I think you got it.
Well, I'm gonna talk just kind of generally and some specifics here, but I've got the spreadsheet here. We had 48 people enter the contest. Now I've got the three columns. Astros wins, Jose Altuve hits, and Kyle Tucker home runs. The Astro wins ranged from 103 at the most predicted, and the lowest at 83. Like they just talked about, Larry Dierker predicted 83.
So the range was 83 to 103?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
The mean average is 94. It's gonna be pretty amazing if they get to the mean average. They gotta play very well just to get to the 90s. I did a little calculation. Right now, if the Astros maintain the same win percentage, they would get 49 wins and have 113 losses. Yeah, so I don't think it'll go below 49. But no, they're gonna have to, just to play 500, they're gonna have to be 9 games over 500 for the rest of the season. And that's probably about what they would, I would predict that they probably do. So if you're on the low end of this, you have probably a much better chance of winning the contest.
Yeah.
Okay. Jose Altuve hits is also really interesting because there's quite a range on that. I believe 204 or 205 was the highest number. The lowest number was down around 112. So it's almost 100 difference in projection on that. The average projection was 164. Right now, Altuve has 33 hits already. And he's on pace to get 232 hits if he continues. So that's not likely to happen. But I think if you're on the high range, this one. Yeah. So if you're on the high range on Altuve for the tiebreaker, but by the way, the tiebreakers were Altuve hits and Tucker. The wins is the primary thing. So if you have a tie, then the tiebreakers will come into play. But if you're on the high end of the Jose Altuve, you're probably better off at this point. Kyle Tucker's was interesting because the range was much smaller. I believe it was like 25 to 35. And the average is 32. No, it's up to 37, I said. 38, there's one, okay. But the average is 32. So right now Tucker has 5 home runs and he's on the pace to hit 35. So he's right on target pretty much. Okay. So anyway, y'all are welcome to keep these. Hopefully I did not miss anybody's predictions. If you sent one in and I missed it for some reason, let me know. But I think we got everybody between Joe and myself included on here. So any questions?
Good job.
All right.
Well, the question on the grade is whether he's gonna be batting average or he's just none.
I think a fun one will be a Brady's hits. So,
Bigger thing is, for any of the hitters, batting average is beat haters ERA.
maybe, I don't know. You know, before I get to the next guest, there is the elephant in the room with the Astros this year. I have a question and maybe all of you can answer it for me. What is this club's fascination with John Singleton?
He's our best first baseman.
The best, okay. Maybe a better question is, when are we gonna see Joey Loperfido?
The thing is, he's not first base.
Well, he's been playing first base.
He's not playing in AAA. He hadn't played in AAA.
According to the story I just ran on Tron.com, he is.
He's been playing for sure, then.
We're in a big club right now.
What were you gonna say there?
I just said I saw him yesterday. We had, another bit of news, we've been trying like hell to raise money to build some fields for a program I have out in Northwest Houston called Urban Camp. And we have a league that goes from the, like T-ball level up through middle school. And we have a day out at the ballpark, the fundraiser for cycle. But anyway, I went to Constellation Field and watched the game along with a lot of others from Dierker's camp program. And it was pretty cool. So I saw him yesterday.
Was he playing first?
Oh, what's that?
Was Loperfido playing first base?
Position.
What position?
I don't remember. I wasn't keeping score.
But he seems to be tearing it up. You know, but his biggest problem is what? Strikeouts, right?
Strikeouts.
The other guy, to me, kind of gone on a little bit. Last year, the kid from U of H, not drawing the number now. Fred had a little bit of power, a little bit of speed.
Corey Jones.
Yeah, Corey Jones, he hit one too. And the wind was blowing pretty hard from the left field foul pole to the right. And it didn't take much to get it right to get it done. Some pop flies were on the warning track. So there were a couple of long flies early. That looked like they might be home runs that were possible. Track to the left. Joe kept one way up in the air, down the third base line, and it went way over. So the raw power, I mean, you just comparing to the other shots, and then one of their players, I'm not sure who, hit one of the left later. So, you know, it's the same thing there as it is here, as it is in probably every professional level of team. Because they just all trying to hit home runs.
Right.
And one of the things that we often sacrifice when you do that is fielding. Because you've got guys that don't run as fast, and actually it's as much at their position as they do lifting weights and trying to hit the ball real far, because that's where you make your money.
Yeah. So, how long are we stuck with, go ahead, what? Go ahead,
We've got a guy on this team that is so versatile, and you plug him in anywhere, he does great, and he can do fine. He can play first base. And hit the stuff.
We can't let too small a target.
Too small a target?
Yeah.
Okay. So are we just, you think a spot is just gonna roll out of breeze? What's that?
Too small batting average on the guy that's in there.
Well.
Yeah.
I mean, you could take Kyle Tucker and make Kyle Tucker a first baseman, now you gotta put Devon out where Tucker is, and I don't know that him learning the position at the same time. You know, Yordan Alvarez is the guy, unfortunately, he's got a brick and he can't do it, but if Alvarez can play first, that is the perfect solution. What's he got? A brick. No, he doesn't. At first, he's a good outfielder. Outfielder, but they said first base he wasn't. You're gonna wave him, he can run. He's definitely got more skill than most players of his type. Real big guys that can hit the ball. But they can run a little better and they can feel a little better. They were saying they had tried him at first. Yeah, well, the thing about it, he's doing okay in left. Yeah. But the idea of taking your best defensive outfielder out of the outfield and putting on first base, it probably doesn't make sense. Probably need to get a first baseman. Yeah. If you're gonna try a Bagwell type experiment where you take a player and change position, you probably don't do it during the regular season, especially this early, when you can still just have the advantage of time. You know, the statistics will all start coming together mid-season and they'll all finish where they are. But what they're doing now is an aberration. Despite the fact that I have the lowest win total, that wasn't anything about first base. It was about pitching. Yeah. Right. So, you know, I just thought it was an odd move to acquire another closer when the one you have, so we may make you nervous, oh, it's pretty good. And so then you have, despite what he may say, it's kind of a slap to knock it down like that.
The issue that they've been mentioning is, between Maton, Stanek and Maris, I think that was probably, I think, at least a third of the innings of the bullpen last year. And they only went and got one, you know, one player, and I think that's problem too.
And that was a team that, where the starters seldom go past the sixth inning, and often don't go past the fifth inning. So, you know, I'm thinking, 2 years ago, it was almost a Cinderella story that we won the World Series. And all of these young guys that could throw real hard and throw it by everybody had good control. I thought it was just remarkable for so many guys with such raw stuff that have such good control too. And I think last year they started to show what they really are, young guys that throw real hard, which makes it hard to have good control. So you're gonna have to have so many innings pitched by the bullpen, by young guys that don't have good control. Well, we're all gonna be environment. They may get it together. I expect them to do a lot better than what they've been doing, but. I think the thing for me that really woke me up, that was the series against the Rangers, get to the postseason. Because the Rangers had a captivating team. They reminded me of the 2017. And I thought, well, only 6 years, and now we're the old, somebody else. You gotta keep bringing it from underneath, and I don't know what we have, but we're probably gonna need some of it.
Yeah,
You know, if you think about it, we lost Brett Strong 2 years ago,
right?
and the team, the pitching was sensational. He went to Arizona. And look at their pitching is now. Pretty daggone good, so what's going to make a difference?
Yeah. Could be an interesting summer.
Pretty tough opening schedules.
Yeah, pretty tough, but, you know, they didn't do so well this weekend either. So, against the Nationals, so, anyway. I just thought I'd ask that to the group before we get to Tony. Tony?
Yeah.
Tony has 2 jobs. He will carry us the rest of the way. A brief book review over the Johnny Wright, the Right Side of History, right?
Another 2 focus real quick. There's a plethora of good books out there.
Okay, so you want to do
Yeah.
the quick book review, but Tony also won the trivia contest last month, so he also has the trivia contest too. So Tony,
Okay.
it's kind of your show for the rest of the night. All right. No pressure, Tony.
Hello, Joe, thank you.
Thank you.
Where have people been standing? Right here? Okay.
Right there.
Right there.
Okay, let me do some book reviews first. Which are all interesting. We received a copy of a book from a member of our group.
Right.
Miss Carlis Wright Robinson. And she's,
Not bad, That's great.
Oh, yeah, she's on the screen.
oh my gosh.
No
Why
pressure,
not?
Tony.
Not mind my P's and Q's. It's a remarkable book. It's very well written. And I enjoyed it immensely. It's about her father, Johnny Wright, who was signed by Brent Rickey, along with Jackie Robinson, to be the first Negro ball player to play in Major League Baseball. He had spent a lot of time after he got out of the Navy to pitching in the Negro League. He was very successful there. And Rickey was interested in signing some players, both Jackie Robinson and her father, to be the first players to be signed by the Dodgers and sent to Montreal to play. So Jackie Robinson went to Montreal, was a star there. Johnny Wright was injured somewhat, and he played a little bit for Montreal, and then he was sent to the lower minor leagues in the Dodger system, whereas Robinson went on to a fabulous career with the Dodgers after a wonderful year at Montreal. He pitched very well in the lower minor leagues for the Dodgers. He won a championship there, but then he was not picked up for the next year. So after that, he spent time pitching in the Negro Leagues, which is a fascinating account of what life was like in the Negro Leagues at that time. And one of the things mentioned is that one way to pump up the attendance at some of the Negro League ball games was to hire someone like Jesse Owens to put on some exhibitions of running. So I'm not sure how many they paid him, but Jesse Owens, Olympic athlete, star of the 36 Olympics, was performing maybe a between innings or before after a ball game, and brought in some fans. But it was difficult for the Negro Leagues to draw attendance, especially after black ball players started to come into the major leagues. But there were World Series for the Negro Leagues. They played a lot of games in Comiskey Park. They had huge crowds then. And after a while, the attendance fell off. And Johnny Wright then migrated to playing in the Mexican League and South American clubs. And it was a tough life to be a pitcher down there in those leagues and in those ballparks. But he thrived, and he was a great pitcher. He finally retired after a while. And I think this is one of the rare books that describes what life was like in the group leagues in the 30s and 40s and 50s. So I can really recommend that book if anybody's interested. There's a copy of it. It's called The Wright Side of History. So very well written. I have a copy here, so we highly recommend it, at least for me. Another book that he's just been.
So let's see if she has a comment about this. She's there. We saw a picture down here.
Oh, well.
John, is that muted?
He's not muted anymore.
Okay.
Carlis, did you have a comment with what Tony said about your book?
I really appreciate all of his comments. And so far, I've been getting pretty good feedback on the book, but I just did it a little bit differently, I think, in that I wanted it to be from a daughter's perspective versus just a regular, like biography. So I hope that I served him well. I lost him in 1990.
He grew up in New York.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, and a lot of what I had read and found was either missing information or incorrect information. So that kind of was my driving force.
I think.
And thank you so much.
Good.
It's a good book, so it's interesting part of history.
Yeah.
Another book that's just been published is a collection of Jimmy Breslin's articles by the Library of America. Breslin was a New York reporter. He was a star reporter for some of the New York newspapers. Of course, a lot of them he wrote for went out of business, but he had a gift for phrase. On the baseball side, he covered Casey Stengel in the '62 Mets and became a wonderful player. But he talks about Stengel's despair at trying to manage the '62 Mets, which set an all-time record for futility. I think 140 games, which looks pretty good. 140 games and lost 112, I guess it was. And they had a ragtag collection of ball players. They had Richie Ashburn there, Snyder there, Thomas.
Yogi Berra for a couple.
And they drew very well to polo grounds. They drew over 1 million fans at '62. But it was, Stengel just gave up in despair about the quality of baseball and the players he had.
He wrote a book about
He did. Can anybody here play this
it.
game?
Anybody here play this game?
And he answered that question and said, no. You know, they had Marv Throneberry. Marvelous Marv. The story with Throneberry was that he hit what he thought was a triple, and he's called out for missing second base. He argued about it. You know, I said, well, Marv, you missed first base too. And so, and Stengel said to Throneberry, they had a day for him. And Casey said, we'd give you the cake, but we were afraid you'd drop it. So it's that kind of book. It's a wonderful thing. He also talks about players like Early Wynn at the end of his career. And Early was a tough ball player. And he didn't take any prisoners. There was this wonderful story about Wynn that they asked him one time, Early, you're so mean, you knock your mother down. He said, well, mother was a hell of a hitter. And so, but he also faced his son. And his son was decided to bet against his father, and he dug in and Early popped him. So no love lost, but it's a great story about a wonderful picture at the end of his career. I was hanging on to win 300 games. I think it was the White Sox. He finally won 300 games and he quit.
He had gout.
And gout?
Yeah, gout, yes.
Well,
Pitching in pain, but he wanted that 300.
how do you get gout? I thought that you got that if you were a governor or something. Central Pacific Island. There was a new book, it's called The New York Game, Baseball in the Rise of a New City, New York. It's about the rise of baseball in the late 19th century and mid 20th century in New York. And the thrust of what the writer is saying is that many traditions that we honor with baseball took place within New York City. All the rules and that sort of game. Because you think baseball is kind of a game you play, big green fields. And they said, no, it's in these small stadiums, these stadiums, where you have a large migrant population becoming big fans. And that's very true. There's some story, he covered Babe Ruth. The writer did, Kevin Baker. And some surprising detail. Ruth and Gary were very good friends until a certain period of time. And he says that in the problems with Ruth, as we heard earlier today, he led a dissolute life. Well, he could hit the hell out of the ball. Otherwise, he was untrustworthy, unreliable character. I think DeRocher said he lived with a suitcase when they were rooming together. And it turned out that when Gary was engaged to this woman, became his wife, he found her one day in Ruth's bedroom, along with other women there, and it was just ghastly. And he said he refused to talk to Ruth after that for a long, long period of time. Another story is that Gary's wife said there's trouble between Gary and Ruth had started some of the habits of Ruth. He said that Ruth was drunk at Garrick's funeral. This kind of stuff pops up later, but I don't know what to make of it, but it's a very good book for you. Well written. We have a book called Charlie Hustle that is coming out sometime. I haven't seen it yet, but I think it will be. Anyway, these are very fine books. And particularly like the Breslin book, because he's a very gifted writer. He talked about different objects. The baseball encyclopedia, he said, I like live men, not dead statistics, that sort of thing. So it's very good. So, Bob, that's all I have, Joe.
What is the name of that second book? Tony, what was the name of the second book?
Well, the second book, Jimmy Breslin, Essential Writings. They collected his newspaper columns. And yeah, he was a talk spot. And the other is a New York game. Anyway, look, watch for that. Oh, okay. Are we at the
All right,
trivia?
anybody else have a question? Does somebody else have a question? Oh, the right side of history, right there.
Right side of history. Very good. Very good.
All right, so we're gonna have the trivia contest now.
Oh,
Tony, do you have any copy?
no, no, we have it on. We have it.
Okay, all right.
What are we gonna write on?
A check.
It's a bank of baseball predictions.
There we go.
Yeah.
Using your Wingo book is.
Everybody online can see that?
Yes.
All right, Tony, go ahead.
All right.
Here we go. We can work in teams, right?
All right. You bet.
Okay.
You'll need it.
Yeah, I will. What's that?
Who is the only player known to commit suicide during the season?
Swing coming out of the gates.
Okay,
Only player to ever commit suicide during the season.
that's right, that we know.
Player, not a manager.
No, it's a player. Player. I think he cut his throat. Okay, number 2. Of the following athletes, which of them played both professional football and organized baseball? And I listed some names: Sammy Ball, Ping Bodie, George Hallis, Art Looney, Germany Schaefer, Jim Thorpe, and Lou Gehrig. Again, the question is, which of them played both baseball and football?
Was there only one?
No.
There's more than one, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sammy Ball, Ping Bodie, George Hallis, Art Looney, Germany Schaefer, Jim Thorpe, and Lou Gehrig. All right, this is historical stuff now. Who was a major league player who was killed in France in World War I, and a monument in his honor was placed in the outfield at the Polo Grounds?
I didn't study up on dead baseball players.
Well, it's another scholarly. Huh?
Dark, weird.
These are dark times.
That goes without saying, yeah.
The only major league player who was a major league player who was killed in France in World War I. In a monument to his honor was placed in Polo Grounds. Okay. Number 4. This heavyweight champion also played minor league baseball. Now, you asked me to do this, Chris.
Hey,
Don't shoot the piano players. This heavyweight champion also played minor league baseball.
I don't think it's right, and yes.
Okay, this is number 5. Who is the only player? The only player to have died as a result of an errant pitch in a major league game.
I would say, considering the current look of Astros fans, this is the perfect way.
The only player to have died as a result of an errant pitch in a major league game.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. On a different tone. Who holds the record? Let me go, who holds the record for both major and minor league baseball? Most home runs in a game.
I don't know, Tony, but I bet he did.
If he isn't, it's news to all of us. Okay, who holds the record? Okay. Who holds the Texas League record for the most home runs in the season?
Wow.
PhD version.
I'm sorry, it's not about the roster of the 65 Astros. Who holds the Texas League record for the most home runs in the season? You're gonna love it. Number 8. What Texas League club holds a record for the highest attendance in a regular season game? All right.
Yeah.
Okay, number 9. Dizzy Dean played his final season as a pitcher in 1940 for which Texas League team? Fabulous characters. All right. The last question. There have been 10 commissioners of baseball. How many of them can you name?
A few minutes here.
Okay.
Finally, a decent question.
Also decided.
Yeah, Will Heritage.
That we call time.
Hold on, thank you.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready.
You're doing good. You're doing great.
I'll never be asked to do this again.
I think we're ready, right? I think we're ready. I don't know.
Suicide during the season. A lot of obscure baseball at college, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the answers?
Yeah, we're ready for the answers.
Ready for the answers? The first one is, the only player known to commit suicide during the regular season. Backup catcher for Cincinnati, Willard Hirschberger.
Oh, yeah.
In 1940. I think it's kind of a mystery, but he had a bad game. The Cincinnati was fighting for a pennant, and maybe he was just depressed. That's what happened. The following athletes, which of them played both professional football and organized baseball?
Jim
Thorpe.
George Allen.
Yes.
King Bodie.
No.
Sammy Baugh?
Yes.
I took a guess. Art Rooney.
Yes.
Germany, Rooney. Germany Smith.
No.
Steelers on there.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, that means King Bodie or Germany shape.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So how many were there?
Lou Gehrig.
Sammy Ball, who played a little baseball in West Texas, minor league ball.
Lou Gehrig.
George Hallis played some ball in the Midwest before he became the owner of the Bears. Art Looney, who founded the Pirates, he played some minor league ball early on.
Right.
Jim Thorpe, of course. Lou Gehrig did not. Yeah, no, he just played baseball.
So four. Okay.
So there'd be 1, 2, 3, 4.
Four.
How do we?
Back to West.
Yeah. Here we go. Leave the night is baseball dads.
Okay.
Louis stop it.
Let me see, this is, the Major League players killed in France in World War I, in monument, replaced is Captain Eddie Grant. I think McGraw loved him, and he was in the army as a captain in France, and was killed in the Meuse-Argonne in 1918.
Christy Matheson had his plaque in the field of Poland.
Yeah.
And he died eventually from gas exposure.
Yes.
That should count also.
Killed in France, just a very lengthy death.
Yeah.
Late inning, okay. So with Eddie Grant, but there was a monument, I don't know what happened to it after they tore down the polo grounds, they kept it somewhere in Johnny'sburg.
They didn't keep it alive.
So, McGraw was sick with this. The, heavyweight champion also played minor baseball, gentleman Jim Corbett.
John L. Sullivan.
No.
Corbett was, out of San Francisco. He was a member of the athletic club out there, and he fought, John L. Sullivan and beat him. And then he fought against Jack Johnson, I guess. Johnson, but it was gentleman Jim Corbett. Okay, the only player to died of an errant pitch.
Shortstop.
Ben Chapman.
Ben Chapman, exactly.
Ben who?
Chapman. He was
Shortstop.
I remember that picture of Eddie.
Carl Mays.
He's always coming inside of people.
Yeah, Chapman was engaged to the owner's daughter and was gonna retire, but he thought Cleveland had a good team in 1920.
They won the pennant.
They did, but he got killed in August or September.
Yeah.
They won without it.
The two older records, both major and minor league, with most home runs down. The catcher by the name of Nick Clark, C-L-A-R-K, he played for Corsicana.
What? Good hearing.
Catcher by the name of Nick N.I.G. Clark, who played with Corsicana in Texas League in 1902. And he hit 8 home runs and drove in 16, I think it's 51-3 ball game.
Nick Clark.
Yeah.
Not Dick Clark, Nick Clark.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So the,
What about record?
It's right there. You did there, John. I see what you did. Oh, been a heck of a record. And.
We'll take Chapman.
John made a joke.
I'm first looking at Chapman's homer.
Okay.
Anyway, Clark hit 8 home runs in a game in 1902, and the historian of the second league was a guy named William Ruggles. And he said he talked to everybody because the official account was a little shady. But he talked to Clark, everybody else, and they all confirmed he hit all those home runs. It's a very small park. And of course, Ken had a wonderful season that year. It won by about 30 games in the Texas League. Number 7, home run season, Ken Gettler. We had Gil.
What'd you say? Ken Gettler?
Ken Gettler was shooting 340.
No, I can't hear you.
Gettler,
Yes.
Ken Gettler. He had a lot of home runs against the Buffaloes that year. Ken, K-E-N.
Okay. Number 8.
How many hit?
I think he's about 56 or so. He had a bunch. Maybe
What year?
1956, maybe in 62. What Texas League club holds the record for the highest attendance in regular game?
Yeah.
The Dallas club.
Oh, I got
The Dallas Eagles. I think they were in 1950. They had the owner. He decided to have make a big splash. So play the game in the Cotton Bowl. And they had over 50,000 fans. It's a minor league ball club.
What year was it?
1950.
Yeah, that was the Texas League Championship against the Cats.
Well, it's the opening game.
Oh, it was opening day.
You're right. But they suited up Chris Beaker, Ty Cobb, and some other players in Dallas uniform. They all appeared at the game. So it was a big promotion, very successful.
Dizzy Dean started for us.
Speaking of
Maybe.
Go ahead.
Okay, he played his final season of pitcher in 1940 for Tulsa. He was 8-8 that year.
Also.
Tulsa Oilers, Drillers, whatever they were then.
Yes, that is the team the Hooks are playing on August 31st.
Same players.
Same players. Dizzy Dean will be starting that game. August 31st, 2024.
Okay, what is correct answer? Okay, the 10 commissioners of baseball,
Mountain Red,
Kennesaw Mountain, that is.
Right.
Ford Frick.
Happy Chandler.
Happy Chandler,
Happy Chandler.
Ford Frick,
Ford Frick.
William Eckhart,
William Eckhart, right?
Louis Q,
Louis Q.
the lawyer, moment of silence.
Peter Uberoff.
Peter Uberoff, yes. Bart Giamatti,
Giamatti.
Steve Rose killed him. Dave Benson.
Oh my God, I can't believe it. Got paid.
Bud Selig. And Rob Manfred. Yes.
You said, yeah, name any commissioner, any sport.
Okay, let's see,
Where do you want to start at? How many total points?
1, 2, 3, 30. I'm not big on numbers. But anyway, how many got 20? 10? It's like Sodom and Gomorrah. 10?
I got 12. I got
12.
There are only 10 questions.
We got the winner.
13? All right.
Yeah.
And I only got 3 questions, right?
You too.
We're not grading on the curve.
Anybody got that? You want to see online? Anybody got more than Fred? Fred got 13, right?
That's right.
Good job.
Fred,
Thank you.
congratulations. You want a signed copy of Wingo? Of course you did. Congratulations, you want to know. That's why you never buy a book before the trivia contest.
Thank you.
Right, no problem. All right, everybody. He's gonna sign it right over here for you, Fred. All right, we didn't know who to sign it to. That'd been election interference. He asked me. Rick tribute.
I wanna point out one thing, Tony, I'm disappointed, you didn't ask the question about the dead ball era. You had everything else in there, yeah, about that.
Actually, that guy getting hit was one of the things that needed to.
All right, everybody, as a reminder, next month, there will be a special Thursday night edition of the Houston SABR chapter meeting. May 23rd, $20 steak and potato night. Okay, our special guest will be David Jerome, who left, who was on here. David will be down here talking about Bill Burden in his book. I'm sure he'll share some stories about Bill and Shirley. If you haven't read the book about Bill Burden, you can either get a copy beforehand and, or buy a copy from him. He's selling them for $30, cash or check only, no credit card. But again, Thursday night, May 23rd. If you want to go to the Corpus Christi Hooks versus Tulsa Drillers game in August, you can put down your deposit. Come talk to me at the end of the meeting. Besides that, everybody have a great day. We'll see how many wins the Astros have in between now and the next meeting. All right, bye-bye, guys. Hey, Tal. All right, next month. Oh, Tal. There you go. Tal. How you doing, Tal?
Carl, all right. See you guys.
Have a nice evening. Go Astros.